The first warning came too late, wrapped inside a message humanity never thought it would hear, from an ally, not an enemy. By the time the words were understood, billions of lives were already marked for sacrifice. The war for the Orion Reach had dragged on longer than anyone predicted. Human fleets had crossed half the galaxy to fight beside the Altherian Pact, a coalition of older alien empires who claimed they stood for unity and survival. The enemy, the Car Void Swarm, consumed systems without mercy, stripping planets down to rock and ash. They were relentless, countless, and terrifying. Humanity should never have survived the first year. But they did. They survived because humans learned fast. Faster than the Pact expected. Faster than the enemy believed possible. Admiral Elias Cade stood on the command deck of the UNS Resolute, watching the tactical map glow with moving symbols. Human ships formed the backbone of the forward line now. That alone would have been unthinkable a decade earlier. "Enemy vectors holding," said Commander Leanne Brooks, her voice steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "Car swarm probes are retreating again." Cade nodded slowly. The enemy had learned to fear human tactics, ambush rotations, adaptive shield cycling, weapons that changed frequency mid-battle. Humans didn't just fight. They studied. They remembered. "Signal the Pact fleet," Cade said. "Tell them the corridor is secure." The Altherian fleet responded moments later. Their massive crystalline warships drifted into position, elegant and ancient, their hulls glowing with patterns that marked centuries of warfare. For 3 years, humans had trusted those ships. That trust had cost them millions already. But today, it would cost far more. The plan was simple. Push through the Orion Reach, destroy the last major car breeding cluster, and end the war in this sector. The Pact leaders had insisted this battle was decisive. Humanity had believed them. Human ground forces were already deployed on nearby colonies, bleeding in silence. Human engineers kept Pact ships operational. Human tacticians planned half their victories. Humanity had become essential. And that made them dangerous. "Admiral," Brooks said quietly. "Encrypted transmission coming in. Pact command priority." "Put it through." The hologram shimmered, resolving into the tall, angular figure of High Strategist Varel Thur of the Altherian. His silver eyes reflected cold calculation, not relief. "Admiral Cade," Varel Thur said. "Your species has served admirably." Something in his tone made Cade straighten. "We fight together," Cade replied. "Always have." "Yes," Varel Thur said. "That is why this must be done cleanly." The transmission cut. For half a second, the bridge was silent. Then alarms screamed. Red markers bloomed across the tactical display, originating not from the car swarm, but from the Pact fleet itself. "Pact weapons charging." Brooks shouted. "They're locking onto us." "No," Cade said. "That's impossible." The first shot tore through space like a blade of light. It struck the UNS horizon, punching straight through its core. The ship vanished in a silent flash, 30,000 souls erased before they could even scream. Chaos exploded across the human formation. "They've turned on us," someone yelled. "Shields to full. Return fire." Cade roared. But it was already over. Human ships were positioned for a forward assault, their strongest shields angled toward the enemy they thought they were fighting. Pact weapons hit exposed flanks, vulnerable engines, command nodes mapped out over years of shared operations. This was not panic. This was preparation. The Pact had planned this. One by one, human ships died. Carriers split apart. Destroyers vanished in fire. Transports full of ground troops never even had time to maneuver. "Admiral!" Brooks cried. "We're losing entire battle groups." "How many left?" Cade demanded. Brooks swallowed. Out of 800, less than 90 still responding. Cade felt something break inside his chest. Not fear, not despair, but a cold, sharpening clarity. "They waited," he said quietly. "They waited until we were essential. Until we were exposed." Another Pact transmission cut through the noise. Varel Thur's face returned, calm and unhurried. "You must understand," the alien said. "The car offered us peace. Your territory in exchange. Your expansion frightened the old empires. Humanity grows too quickly, learns too fast." "You're murdering us," Cade said. "After everything we gave you." "Survival requires sacrifice," Varelthur replied. "Better one young species than the balance of the galaxy." The image vanished. The packed fleet pulled back, methodical and precise. They didn't bother finishing the survivors. They didn't need to. The message was clear. Humanity was expendable. The retreat to Sol was a graveyard journey. Crippled ships limped through space, carrying the remnants of what had once been humanity's greatest fleet. No cheers welcomed them home. No victory announcements followed. Only silence. Earth burned with grief. Entire cities went dark as casualty lists scrolled across every screen. Families waited for names that never appeared. Others watched as names they loved flashed past in cold white text. The Galactic Assembly issued a statement of deep concern. They did nothing else. Human colonies beyond Sol fell within weeks. Pact forces moved in alongside the car, dividing systems with ruthless efficiency. Billions of humans lived under occupation before Earth could even react. Admiral Cade stood before the United Earth Council, his uniform stained with ash and fatigue. He told them everything. The betrayal. The planning. The calculation. When he finished, no one spoke. Finally, Chairwoman Amora Reyes leaned forward. Her voice did not shake. "What is your recommendation, Admiral?" Cade looked around the chamber. At the faces marked by loss. At the species that had just learned the galaxy's true rule. "We disappear," he said. Murmurs rippled through the room. "We let them think they broke us," Cade continued. "We retreat. We comply. We stay quiet." "And then?" Reyes asked. Cade's eyes hardened. "And then we learn. Everything. Their technology. Their psychology. Their mistakes." Silence returned, heavier than before. Reyes nodded once. "They believe this is the end of our story." Cade allowed himself a thin, dangerous smile. "They are wrong." That night, a single message broadcast from Earth across every known channel. It was not a threat. Not a plea. It was a promise. "We remember." Far across the stars, the alien empires celebrated. They had no idea what humanity was becoming in the dark. For the galaxy, humanity's silence was proof of defeat. For humanity, it was camouflage. The Pact patrols watched Sol from a distance, their sensors drinking in every signal, every transmission, every engine burn. They reported steady decline. Fewer ships. Less traffic. No aggressive maneuvers. Earth looked like a wounded world licking its scars. That was exactly what the Pact wanted to see. Deep beneath Earth's crust, far below cities and oceans, humanity began to change. Admiral Elias Cade stood inside Vault 7, a chamber so old it predated humanity's first contact with alien life. It had once been built for extinction-level disasters. Now it housed something far more dangerous: ideas. Around him stood scientists, engineers, strategists, economists, historians. Not soldiers alone. Humanity had learned long ago that wars were not won by guns, but by minds. "We start by admitting the truth," Cade said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The galaxy doesn't respect ideals. It respects outcomes." No one argued. Dr. Rana Iqbal stepped forward, a systems theorist pulled from a research station the Pact believed abandoned. "We studied their betrayal," she said. "Not emotionally. Logically." She brought up a projection of the Pact command structure. Ancient hierarchies. Rigid chains of authority. Slow adaptation cycles. "They are old," she continued. "Old species calcify. Their doctrines become tradition. Their strategies repeat." "And repetition," Cade said, "can be exploited." Across the room, Commander Leanne Brooks watched in silence. She had lost her sister at Orion Reach. Rage still lived in her, but it no longer ruled her. What about the car swarm? Brooks asked. They're still out there. They are predictable, Iqbal replied. They consume. They don't innovate. The Pact fears humanity more than the swarm ever did. That truth settled heavily. Humanity had scared them. That was why the betrayal happened. So what do we become? Brooks asked. Cade answered without hesitation. Invisible. Then inevitable. Over the next years, humanity vanished from the galactic stage. Officially, Earth complied with occupation terms. Resources flowed outward. Colonies reported productivity. Human leaders spoke softly in public forums. Privately, everything changed. Factories moved underground. Research stations were hidden inside asteroid shadows and dead systems masked by radiation storms. Civilian ships were redesigned as modular war platforms, their weapons concealed beneath cargo plating. Human children were taught history differently now. Not myths of unity, but lessons of survival, of pattern recognition, of patience. 10 years passed. Then 20. The Pact grew comfortable. Their fleets spread thin, confident no uprising could come from a species they had crippled so completely. Their technology advanced slowly, built on refinements rather than revolutions. Human technology did not refine. It leapt. In a black system with no name, the first Ghost fleet assembled. No flags. No signatures. No identifiable hull patterns. Ships built with adaptive matter skins that confused sensors. Drives that folded space instead of tearing through it. Weapons that did not fire energy or mass, but probability. Systems designed to collapse enemy defenses by exploiting quantum uncertainty. Humanity had stopped trying to match alien power. They had learned to bypass it. Director Rana Iqbal stood on the bridge of the UNS Quietus, watching test data scroll across her display. They won't see us, she said softly. Not until we choose to be seen. Cade, older now but sharper than ever, nodded. We don't strike yet. Even after all this? Brooks asked. Cade turned to her. Especially after all this. Humanity's goal was not revenge. Revenge was emotional. Temporary. Humanity wanted permanence. The first operation wasn't military. It was economic. Human operatives quietly disrupted Pact trade networks. Not by destroying ships, but by altering data. Shipping manifests changed. Resource flows misaligned. Entire worlds experienced shortages without knowing why. The Pact blamed inefficiency, corruption, bad luck. Then came information warfare. Human algorithms seeded subtle contradictions into Pact communication systems. Orders arrived delayed. Commands conflicted. Decisions slowed as leaders argued over realities that no longer matched. The Pact grew frustrated. Still, they never suspected humanity. Why would they? Humans were broken. Small. Contained. Then, in the outer Heliox system, a Pact patrol vanished. No distress call. No debris. Just absence. The Pact investigated cautiously. Scouts reported nothing unusual. No enemy signatures. No signs of battle. They labeled it a navigation failure. 3 months later, another patrol disappeared. Then another. Fear crept into Pact command rooms, slow and unwelcome. But fear without understanding becomes denial. Cade watched reports arrive in silence. Phase 3, he said. The Ghost fleet moved. In a single coordinated moment, human ships appeared inside 3 Pact core systems, past defenses thought impenetrable. They didn't attack population centers. They didn't bombard worlds. They targeted infrastructure. Shipyards went dark. Data vaults vanished. Defense platforms shut down as if switched off. Then the human ships were gone. Across the galaxy, panic spread. The Pact issued emergency summons to their fleets. They spoke of unknown attackers, of sabotage, of impossible technology. Still, they did not say humanity's name. They couldn't. To admit that the species they had betrayed and crushed was now dismantling their empire from the inside would mean admitting a fatal error. And the galaxy's old powers did not admit mistakes. Cade stood once more before Earth's council, now hidden beneath layers of secrecy. "They're reacting exactly as predicted," he said. "And when do we show ourselves?" Chairwoman Reyes asked. Cade looked at the stars on the display. Systems blinking, lines shifting, an empire slowly unraveling. "When they understand," he replied, "that they never won the war." Far away, High Strategist Varel Thur stared at reports he could no longer explain. Supply failures. Missing fleets. Systems falling silent without a fight. For the first time in his long life, fear reached his silver eyes. Somewhere in the dark, humanity was moving. And the galaxy was finally beginning to realize. Silence had never meant surrender. Fear spread through the pact like a sickness they refused to name. High Strategist Varel Thur stood alone in the Hall of Continuity, a place where pact leaders had once gathered to celebrate victories that spanned centuries. The walls still glowed with records of conquest and diplomacy, but now the light felt cold. Accusatory. Another report hovered before him. Another system gone dark. Not conquered. Not destroyed. Simply removed. No debris. No energy signatures. "No survivors," his aide said, struggling to keep composure. "Defense grids deactivated before firing. Command nodes erased from the inside." Varel Thur dismissed the aide and remained staring at the projection. This was not how wars were fought. This was how systems were dismantled. He remembered the human admiral's eyes at Orion Reach. Not panic. Not confusion. Understanding. That memory haunted him. Across the galaxy, the pact scrambled. Fleets were recalled. Borders tightened. Ancient protocols were revived. Yet every response came too late or struck nothing at all. Because humanity was no longer reacting. They were deciding. On a forgotten moon orbiting a dead star, Admiral Elias Cade watched a live feed of a pact command station being quietly shut down from the inside. No explosions. No alarms. Just darkness spreading room by room. Commander Leanne Brooks stood beside him. "They are terrified," she said. "But they still don't know it's us." Cade shook his head. "Some of them know." "Then why don't they say it?" "Because saying it changes everything," Cade replied. "If humanity is acknowledged as a threat again, the galaxy adapts. If we remain a ghost, they panic in the wrong directions." Brooks folded her arms. "How long do we keep this up?" Cade's voice was calm. "Until fear becomes habit." Humanity had learned something the old empires never had. You didn't need to destroy an enemy to defeat them. You only needed to make their future uncertain. Human engineers refined systems faster than pact analysts could understand them. Human tacticians rewrote battle doctrine without firing a single shot. Human sociologists predicted alien political fractures with terrifying accuracy. The galaxy ran on stability. Humans introduced chaos. Occupied human colonies became something else entirely. To the pact, they looked compliant, productive, quiet. In reality, they were universities. Every alien patrol route was mapped. Every command phrase recorded. Every weakness documented. Entire generations grew up studying their occupiers not with hatred, but with curiosity. That frightened the pact more than rebellion ever could have. 25 years after the betrayal, the first human counterstrike happened in public. A pact Grand Fleet assembled above the world of Arctyros, a symbol of unity meant to reassure the galaxy. Thousands of ships formed precise formations, weapons idle but visible. They never saw the human ships arrive. Space folded. Human vessels emerged inside the formation itself, too close for targeting solutions, too unpredictable for automated defenses. The pact fleet didn't explode. It shut down. Power drained from thousands of warships at once, systems overridden by code no one understood. Engines died. Weapons went dark. Communications dissolved into static. Then a message appeared on every screen. Not a threat. A statement. You betrayed us in war. This is what patience looks like. The human ships vanished before a single packed weapon could fire. Across the galaxy, silence followed. Then panic. Emergency sessions convened. Alliances fractured. Worlds demanded answers their leaders could not give. The Galactic Assembly finally spoke. They demanded dialogue. Humanity ignored them. Cade watched the broadcast from a darkened command room. They still think this is about peace, he said. Brooks frowned. Isn't it? Cade met her gaze. Peace is what comes after balance. Right now, we are correcting imbalance. The Pact tried retaliation. They found nothing to hit. Their fleets chased shadows. Their weapons locked onto empty space. Their intelligence agencies collapsed under contradictory data fed by human systems designed to lie convincingly. Then the car swarm made its move. Sensing weakness, the swarm surged into Pact territory, overwhelming border defenses. Worlds burned. The Pact begged the Assembly for aid. Once, humanity would have answered. This time, humanity watched. They're being eaten alive, Brooks said quietly. Yes, Cade replied. And they will remember who taught them how to survive. As the Pact struggled against the swarm, human ships struck deeper. Not to save. Not to punish. To claim. Key systems vanished from Pact control overnight. Supply lines rerouted themselves. Entire sectors declared independence under new governance models, quietly backed by human logistics and defense. The galaxy was changing shape. And at its center was a species that had once been dismissed as young, emotional, weak. Varelthur stood before a council that no longer trusted him. We misjudged humanity, he admitted at last. That admission fractured the Pact. Civil disputes erupted. Commanders refused orders. Worlds seceded. Old unity collapsed under the weight of fear and regret. In the ruins of a once proud empire, Varelthur finally understood the truth. Humanity had not come back angry. They had come back evolved. Cade stood on the bridge of the UNS Quietus, watching stars shift as new territories aligned under human protection. Not conquest. Influence. Phase 4 is ready, Brooks said. Cade nodded slowly. Send the message. For the first time since the betrayal, humanity spoke openly to the galaxy. We did not return for revenge. We returned because power was left unattended. We returned because the future needs guardians who remember betrayal. Across 1,000 worlds, old empires trembled. They were beginning to understand. The storm humanity had hidden was no longer quiet. And it was moving toward the heart of the galaxy. The galaxy did not panic all at once. At first, it hesitated. Old empires had survived wars, rebellions, even extinction-level threats before. Panic was something lesser species felt. Panic was irrational. So the galaxy tried denial. Reports of human-controlled systems were labeled exaggerations. Stories of fleets that vanished without battle were dismissed as propaganda. The idea that humanity, once broken, occupied, and contained, was now reshaping galactic power felt impossible. Impossible things were easier to ignore. Until they weren't. The turning point came at Syndral Gate. Syndral Gate was not a planet. It was a junction, an artificial lattice of space-time corridors built over thousands of years. Whoever controlled it controlled trade across 6 major sectors. The Pact had guarded it since before humanity invented electricity. It was considered untouchable. Humanity touched it anyway. Without warning, every control authority at Syndral Gate lost access. Automated defenses powered down. Traffic locks disengaged. Hundreds of ships drifted helplessly as new navigation laws overwrote ancient systems. And then the human fleet appeared. Not thousands of ships. Not overwhelming force. 30 vessels positioned themselves calmly at the heart of the gate, engines idle, weapons cold. They did not fire. They did not threaten. They transmitted one sentence, translated perfectly into every known language. Syndral Gate is now under human administration. That was all. Across the galaxy, markets crashed within minutes. Trade routes collapsed. Governments demanded answers. Militaries scrambled fleets that no longer knew where to go. The Galactic Assembly called an emergency convocation. For the first time in recorded history, humanity was formally invited to speak. Admiral Elias Cade walked into the assembly chamber knowing every eye was on him. Some looked fearful. Some angry. Some desperate. None looked dismissive. "You destabilize everything we built," an elder delegate said. "You act without permission." Cade's voice was calm. "So did you. At Orion Reach." Murmurs spread. Another delegate leaned forward. "What do you want, Admiral?" Cade did not answer immediately. He let the silence work. Humans had learned the power of silence. "What we want," he said at last, "is accountability." Screens ignited around the chamber. Records appeared. Battle logs. Communications. Proof of betrayal that could no longer be denied. "You sacrificed us for convenience," Cade continued. "You taught us the galaxy rewards strength, not trust. We listened." Varel Thur, older now, thinner, stood slowly. "If we had known what you would become." "You did know," Cade interrupted. "That's why you tried to end us early." The assembly fell quiet. Outside the chamber, news spread faster than light. Occupied human worlds rose, not in chaos, but in coordination. Pact governors were removed with surgical precision. Supply chains shifted allegiance overnight. Human administrators didn't rule through fear. They ruled through efficiency. Food arrived on time. Infrastructure worked. Security was predictable and fair. For many worlds, life improved under human oversight. That frightened the old powers more than human weapons ever could. Because it made resistance unpopular. The Pact attempted one final stand. A consolidated fleet, what remained of their military, gathered near their ancestral capital. They broadcast warnings. Ultimatums. Threats that echoed hollowly across space. Humanity answered by arriving early. The Ghost Fleet emerged beyond visual range, invisible until it wasn't. Space bent. Sensors failed. Pact commanders lost coordination in seconds. Still, humanity did not annihilate them. Cade addressed the enemy fleet directly. "This ends now," he said. "Stand down, or you will never know why you lost." They did not stand down. The battle lasted less time than it took the galaxy to realize it had begun. Human ships moved unpredictably, rewriting local physics in controlled bursts. Pact weapons misfired, locked onto false targets, or simply refused to function. Command ships went dark first. Then carriers. Then the rest. When it ended, the Pact fleet still existed. But it was helpless. Floating. Alive. Cade let that image spread. Power, humanity had learned, was not in destruction. It was in choice. The galaxy watched as human forces seized administrative control of Pact territory, not violently, but decisively. Borders were redrawn. Resources redistributed. Old hierarchies dismantled. The Car Swarm, sensing a new predator, retreated into deep space. For the first time in generations, the galaxy stabilized. Under human terms. Brooks stood beside Cade on the bridge, watching new star maps form. "They're calling it the human ascendancy now." Cade exhaled slowly. "Names don't matter." "What does?" "That we never become what betrayed us." Brooks nodded. "And if the galaxy tests us again?" Cade's eyes hardened, not with anger, but with certainty. Then they will learn the final lesson. Across 1,000 systems, humanity's presence settled in, not as conquerors, but as architects. The galaxy had underestimated them once. It would not survive doing so again. And still, the story was not finished. Because humanity had not yet taken everything. The galaxy called it the human ascendancy, but humanity never used that name. To humans, it was simply correction. For centuries, the galaxy had been shaped by species that believed age meant wisdom and power meant entitlement. They built empires that lasted because no one dared challenge the rules they wrote. Humanity did not shatter those rules in anger. They rewrote them in calm handwriting. Admiral Elias Cade stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital council station, watching ships arrive from 100 worlds. Not warships, envoys, administrators, economists. Entire civilizations asking the same question in different languages. What now? Behind Cade, Chairwoman Amora Reyes spoke quietly. They're afraid of us. They should be, Cade replied. Fear keeps memory alive. But we're not destroying them, Reyes said. Some say we're being too gentle. Cade turned. Gentle is not weak. Gentle is controlled. Across former Pact territory, humanity completed what the war had truly been about. Databanks were seized. Archives unlocked. Ancient treaties exposed. Hidden resource monopolies dismantled. Human analysts didn't just take ships and planets. They took leverage. Every secret the old empires had hoarded, about trade routes, rare matter sources, genetic advantages, population control methods, was catalogued, understood, and redistributed. The galaxy's greatest advantage had always been information imbalance. Humanity eliminated it. Varel Thur, once high strategist of the Pact, now stood before a human tribunal. Not in chains. Not humiliated. Simply accountable. You want everything, he said quietly. Cade nodded. Yes. Power. Territory. Control. No, Cade replied. Understanding. Access. Safeguards. Valthur closed his eyes. You're building something permanent. We are preventing repetition, Cade said. The tribunal ended without spectacle. Varel Thur was not executed. He was recorded. His decisions preserved in open archives, studied by future generations across species. Human justice was not about erasure. It was about memory. Years passed. Human-designed governance systems spread, not forced, but adopted. Worlds discovered that transparency reduced corruption. That adaptive systems outperformed rigid hierarchies. That rapid learning mattered more than ancient pride. The Galactic Assembly was restructured. No permanent seats. No inherited authority. Influence scaled with contribution, responsibility, and adaptability. Many old powers hated it. None could stop it. The Car Swarm attempted one last resurgence. They entered a region humanity had deliberately left unclaimed, testing boundaries. Humanity responded once. A single fleet. A single engagement. The swarm was not annihilated. It was contained. Redirected into deep space corridors humanity had mapped long ago, far from inhabited systems. Monitored. Studied. Neutralized as a threat without becoming a genocide. That decision echoed louder than any battle. The galaxy realized something then. Humanity did not rule through fear of punishment. They ruled through fear of consequence. On Earth, children grew up learning not just what happened at Orion Reach, but why it mattered. They studied betrayal as a data point, not a wound. They learned that anger burns out, but strategy compounds. Commander Leanne Brooks, older now, stood beside Cade one final time as he prepared to step down. You could have taken the title they offered, she said. Supreme Protector. High Custodian. Cade smiled faintly. Titles invite challengers. And what will you do? Teach, he said. The next generation must learn faster than we did. Brooks nodded. Do you think the galaxy has learned its lesson? Cade looked out at the stars, now mapped, connected, watched over by a species that once had nothing. They learned the wrong lesson about us, he said. Which is? That we did this because we were angry. Brooks waited. We did this, Cade continued, because the galaxy left power unattended. Far away, in systems that once celebrated humanity's destruction, old leaders whispered warnings to their successors. Do not test the humans. They do not forget. They do not rush. And they do not stop halfway. Humanity had been betrayed in the middle of war. So they had taken the empire. Not out of hate, but because someone had to be strong enough to hold it. And this time, the story did not end in silence. It ended in balance. And for the first time in galactic history, the future was watching humanity back.